The voicemail from my dad came in at 2:14 a.m., and I swear I can still hear the exact way his voice sounded when I play it back in my head, cold, final, like a judge delivering a sentence. He didn't even say hello. He just said, "Don't bother coming. We're cutting ties. It's better for everyone if you stay away from this family." Then the line went dead. No explanation. No hesitation. Just done. I sat there staring at my phone in the dark for a long time, wondering if I had somehow misunderstood him. But I hadn't. I knew my dad. When he said something like that, he meant it. So I typed 2 words back. "Understood," and I put my phone down. I didn't beg. I didn't argue. I didn't call him back. But here's the thing that still makes people question me even now. What I did after that text changed everything for my entire family. Some people say I went too far. Others say I finally stood up for myself. So I'm asking you honestly, if your own father cut you off like that in the middle of the night, would you just walk away quietly? Or would you make sure they never forgot what they did to you? To understand why that voicemail hit so hard, you need to know what my family was like growing up. From the outside, we looked like the perfect suburban family. My dad owned a construction company, my mom stayed home, and we had this big 2-story house in a quiet neighborhood. I was the oldest of 3 kids. My younger brother Kyle was the golden child, and my little sister, Megan, was basically invisible unless she was getting in trouble. And me, I was the one expected to set the example, which was just a nicer way of saying I was the one expected to do everything right, without ever complaining. My dad was the type of man who believed respect meant obedience. If he told you to do something, you did it. No questions. No attitude. And if you pushed back even a little, you'd hear about it for weeks. I spent most of my childhood trying to earn approval from a man who treated affection like it was some kind of reward you had to qualify for. Things got worse when I turned 17. That was the year my dad decided I needed to start working for his company every summer. At first, I thought it would be good bonding time. I imagined learning the business, maybe one day taking it over. But the reality was nothing like that. My dad didn't treat me like a son on those job sites. He treated me like the lowest paid worker he had. I carried lumber, cleaned up debris, hauled equipment, whatever nobody else wanted to do. And if I made even a small mistake, he'd chew me out in front of the whole crew. I still remember one day when I mismeasured a beam by half an inch. Half an inch. He slammed his hard hat onto the ground and yelled, "This is why I can't trust you with anything important." Everyone on the site went silent while I just stood there, humiliated. That kind of thing happened all the time. By the time I graduated high school, I knew one thing for sure. I didn't want to spend my life trying to impress him anymore. So instead of joining the family business like he expected, I applied to a university 3 states away. When I told him I got accepted, he barely looked up from his paperwork. He just said, "Don't expect me to pay for it." That was fine with me. I worked 2 jobs, took out loans, and somehow made it through. Those 4 years were the first time I felt like I could actually breathe. I built my own life, my own friends, my own identity that didn't revolve around my dad's approval. But every time I came home for holidays, it was like stepping back into the same old dynamic. Kyle was still the favorite. My mom still avoided conflict at all costs. And my dad still acted like my biggest life mistake was not working for him. Things really exploded about 2 years ago. That was when my dad started talking about retirement. Out of nowhere, he began hinting that maybe I should reconsider joining the company after all. At first, I thought it was almost funny. For years, he'd treated me like I was useless. And now suddenly he wanted me involved? But the more we talked, the more I realized his plan. He wasn't inviting me in as an equal partner. He expected me to come back home, work under Kyle, who had 0 management skills, and basically fix all the problems in the business while Kyle kept the title and the credit. When I said that didn't sound fair, my dad got this tight look on his face that I'd seen 1,000 times growing up. The "you're about to regret speaking" look. The argument that followed was one of the worst we'd ever had. I told him I had my own career now. I worked in software development. I had my own apartment, my own life. I wasn't interested in moving back just to clean up Kyle's mess. That's when my dad accused me of being selfish. He said everything he'd done. Raising me meant nothing if I wasn't willing to give back to the family. I reminded him I had paid for my own college and built my career without his help. That didn't go over well. The conversation ended with him saying, "If you walk away from this family when we need you, don't expect to be part of it later." At the time, I thought it was just another dramatic threat. I didn't realize how serious he actually was. For a while after that, things were tense but quiet. We barely spoke. My mom would occasionally text me little updates about the family, but my dad never reached out. Then came the event that started this whole disaster. My sister Megan was getting married. She and I were actually pretty close, because we were the two kids who never quite fit into my dad's expectations. When she called to tell me the wedding date, she sounded excited but also nervous. She admitted Dad was insisting that the whole family present a united front. Apparently he was still angry that I refused to join the company. I told her not to worry. I would show up, be polite, and keep the peace for her sake. That seemed like the mature thing to do. But about a week before the wedding, I got a strange message from Kyle. He said Dad was worried I might cause tension during the ceremony. I laughed at that because I was literally planning to just sit quietly and support Megan. But Kyle kept pushing, saying Dad wanted reassurance, that I wouldn't bring up any family business issues. I told him that wasn't even on my mind. Still, something about the conversation felt off. Like they were building some kind of narrative about me being the problem. Then the night before the rehearsal dinner, my dad called. Not to talk things out, not to clear the air, just to lecture me again about loyalty and family obligations. I told him I wasn't going to argue. Megan's wedding wasn't the place for it. He hung up without responding. And that brings us back to the voicemail. When I woke up and heard that message telling me not to come, I was stunned. Megan had no idea. I called her and she started crying because she thought I had decided to skip the wedding myself. Apparently my dad told everyone I refused to attend. That's when something inside me finally snapped. For years I had been the one trying to keep the peace, the one swallowing my pride so family gatherings wouldn't explode. And now he was rewriting the story to make me the villain again. So that's the situation I was in. My own father had cut me off hours before my sister's wedding and was already telling everyone it was my fault. I had two choices. I could stay quiet and let his version become the truth, or I could do something that would make the entire family confront what was really happening. Before I tell you what I actually did, I want you to stop for a second and think about it. Seriously, put yourself in my place. If your parent publicly erased you from the family like that, what would you do? Would you respect their decision and disappear? Or would you fight back? Go ahead and think about that. Because what happened next turned my sister's wedding into something nobody in that room will ever forget. Instead of arguing with my dad, I sent that 2-word text. Understood. Then I sat down at my computer and started digging through years of old emails and documents. See, during college, I had occasionally helped my dad with small tech issues for the company, setting up spreadsheets, organizing digital invoices, things like that. And because of that, I still had access to some of the company's shared cloud folders. I hadn't thought about them in years, but once I opened them again, I realized something pretty shocking. The business wasn't just struggling, it was barely staying afloat. There were unpaid supplier bills, tax notices, and emails from clients threatening legal action over unfinished projects. And guess who had been responsible for managing most of that lately? Kyle. The more I looked, the more obvious it became that my dad had been hiding the company's financial mess from everyone, including my mom and sister. He had been trying to convince me to come back because he needed someone competent to save it. And when I refused, he decided it was easier to cut me out than admit the truth. That realization changed everything for me, because suddenly his voicemail wasn't just cruel, it was strategic. If the business collapsed, he needed someone to blame, and apparently that someone was going to be me. So I did something I had never done before in my life. I stopped protecting him. I gathered the emails, the financial statements, the legal warnings, everything that showed exactly how bad things were. And then I scheduled an email to be sent at 5 p.m. the next day, right in the middle of the wedding reception. The recipients, my dad, my brother, my mom, my sister, and about 20 extended family members, who had always believed my dad's version of every story. When the reception started, I was sitting alone in my apartment 3 states away, staring at my laptop screen and wondering if I was making the biggest mistake of my life. But at exactly 5 p.m., the email went out. Within minutes, my phone started exploding with notifications. Megan called first, sounding completely confused. Apparently, people at the reception were opening the email and whispering to each other. My dad was furious, demanding to know where the documents came from. My mom was crying because she had no idea the company was in that much trouble. And Kyle apparently stormed out of the venue entirely. Later, I heard from Megan that the entire mood of the reception shifted. Conversation stopped. People were checking their phones, comparing what they were reading. My dad tried to brush it off as misinterpreted paperwork, but there was too much evidence. Too many years of ignored warnings. For the first time in my life, the family saw the reality behind his authority. The aftermath was messy. My dad didn't speak to me for months. Kyle blamed me for humiliating him, but something unexpected happened too. My mom finally confronted my dad about the company's finances. Megan told him she was angry he had tried to exclude me from her wedding. And slowly, the narrative he had controlled for decades started to crack. I'm not going to pretend everything magically fixed itself. Families don't work like that. But for the first time, I stopped feeling like the family scapegoat. I stopped apologizing for things that weren't my fault. And strangely enough, about 6 months later, my dad called me again. Not to apologize exactly, he's not the type, but to ask if we could talk like adults. That was the closest thing to peace we've ever had. Looking back now, I still wonder if I handled it the right way. Part of me wishes things hadn't reached that point. But another part of me knows that if I had stayed silent, nothing would have changed. Sometimes the only way to break a toxic cycle is to refuse to play the role everyone expects from you. So that's my story. My dad said, "Don't bother coming. We're cutting ties," and I answered with, "Understood." But understanding doesn't mean accepting someone, rewriting the truth about you. If you think I was justified in standing up for myself, go ahead and like this video. If you've ever dealt with family drama like this, subscribe for more stories because trust me, there are plenty out there. And I really want to hear what you think. Did I go too far? Or did my dad bring this on himself? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for listening to this whole mess, and I'll see you all in the next story.